leaders of the Black Lives Matter organization, who calls herself a trained Marxist, is now being called a fraud after property records showed Patrisse Cullors shelled out millions of dollars on 4 luxury homes. One of them in Los Angeles' exclusive 88% white Topanga Canyon. This, as the Associated Press reports, Black Lives Matter took in some $90 million in donations last year. Now remember, this is the organization. The movement with people in the streets, they're not getting rained down on by cash. Now other people in the organization want an investigation into the group's finances. The head of the New York chapter of BLM.org also wants a close look at Cullors' personal finances, saying a self-professed socialist should ask how much of their own money is going to charitable causes. Oh, this is interesting, Pete Hegg said.
You know what? She's actually a very well-trained Marxist. It's because she's a member of the bourgeoisie. She controls the means of production. It's the proletariat, the masses that get to enjoy the fruits of Marxism. Like all those local chapters of Black Lives Matter that are having to do GoFundMe pages because they've never seen any of the money from the central machine, which is raised up to $90 million and growing. So this doesn't surprise me at all. She got the ability to have access to cash and wealth because through a movement which has metamorphosized ever since, and she's being called out for it. And hopefully there is an investigation. We don't know where she got the money and how she earned it, and maybe she's turned into a capitalist. But those Marxists have a way of enriching themselves when they're at the top.
You know, Kennedy, I make such a point of saying that the movement versus the organization, right? Because we know that the organization's fundraising, they're doing all sorts of things, and we don't have eyes on that money. And as Pete says, maybe it's a good idea not just because of the house buying, but just in general, since there's so many promises made to the people in the streets. But they're, you know, it's not like they're members. They're just in the streets because they want social justice. So what do you think they need to know about this situation?
That the people, you know, and obviously it's important to make that differentiation. I'm glad you did, because there are people for whom the phrase Black Lives Matter resonates. It means something to them, and it is a cause worth fighting for. There are other people who are really, really good at marketing, and it's funny that they call themselves socialists because they're really hyper-capitalists. And, you know, again, I love capitalism, and I'll go ahead and give her the benefit of the doubt. I have no idea how much they paid in taxes, if they paid any money in taxes, if they're a 501c3. But let's say she made her money in GameStop and Bitcoin, and if that's the case, and she participated in the thriving aspects of the free market economy that have not been tamped down by the federal government, then good for her. Real estate in LA, always a great investment. So in that respect, I'm very, very proud of her.
I just want to dip my toe in the water real gently here in the river of hypocrisy. Can we? Just for a moment. I'll put my flip-flop back on in a second. Kayleigh, I'm just wondering, you know, you're talking about social justice, particularly for people of color. Why not take those funds that you've earned, maybe, you know, Dogecoin, wherever she got rich, paid her taxes, did whatever, as Kennedy points out, we don't know. But why not take that back to a neighborhood of color or a neighborhood where, you know, you can be among the people? I don't know. I'm just simply asking the question. You can live wherever you want, but you're preaching something different.
Yeah, one would think a self-proclaimed trained Marxist would do exactly what you just described, but she didn't. But look, to Kennedy's point, if she got these funds through a legitimate way, not through the BLM fundraising mechanism, good for her. Look, she came from public housing. She writes about in her book. She grew up in public housing. Her mom was a mom of 4, worked 16-hour days, and their only grocery store was the 7-Eleven. She came from very humble beginnings and now has risen to great heights. So good for her, except this. That is the American dream, what we're describing, but she professes an ideology directly at odds with the American dream. Trained Marxists, but trained Marxists often do this. Bernie Sanders, a self-proclaimed Democrat socialist, makes millions and has 3 houses. Elizabeth Warren has a net worth of almost $8 million. So as we find with trained Marxists, socialists, and others, they often don't practice what they preach.
Yeah, you know, I guess I just see it as a missed opportunity, Emily. She should be, or could be, I shouldn't say should be, it's not about the judgment, but she could be, you know, lifting others up and teaching them how to do exactly what she did, pulling them out of poverty so that when things happen, they don't have to loot and break things. They actually have a future that they can participate in and lift themselves up, and then challenge a justice system to treat them better.
Right, right? There's nothing wrong with using your hard-earned money to purchase large homes and whatever you want. What is difficult to stomach is either A, if that money was obtained fraudulently, and or B, if, as you pointed out, you are not in line with what you profess to, what your ideology is. If her whole purpose is amplifying those of color, if her whole purpose is lifting up those communities, then what does this say? And I'd like to make 2 quick points. Number one, those investigations that are being called for by other Black Lives Matter leaders, if something is uncovered there in the way of fraud or corruption or any type of money mismanagement, I bet that you will hear nothing about it by the mainstream media, or it will be pinned on one scapegoat. And secondly, that for those who really care about that movement and who want to donate money to it, then I suggest they find local, transparent organizations that they know their dollars are actually going toward achieving equality and equity.